Hi, my name is Cameron Gomez, and I am doing the chapter reviews over 1 through 3 of the book Bless Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first thing I want to start off with is some background. I want to start off with the main character, who is Antonio Mores. He is almost at the time 7 years old. This happens in the summertime of his sixth, when he was like around six, about to be seven. So the time frame is based in the 1940s and is in the plains of New Mexico. So one thing I really want to start off with is how this book goes into depth of diverse lifestyles of the characters, the cultures behind some of the characters, as well as the religious influences that are throughout the characters. Another thing I also want to point out is reading this book, I definitely learn more Spanish words. And like for example, we have el año, which means a plane, and then we have cuarenta, which means healer. And at first, when I was reading this and I saw those words, I was really confused on what they meant, and so I had to look them up. And then I found out what they were. So when I went back and reread the parts that I didn't understand, it made much more sense. All right. So first, I want to start off with chapter 1, and the thing I like about chapter 1 is how he starts it off with how he doesn't want to start at the beginning of his life, like when he was first born, but more he wants to start at the beginning of his life with Ultima. So I want to talk about his family real quick. So he has two older brothers, or not two older brothers, he has two older sisters and three older brothers. Two of them live with him in the house, and three of his brothers they are in the war, so they are not currently at the house. His parents, they come from two totally different backgrounds. His mom came from a life of farmers, and his dad came from the life of the plains and being a vaquero. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I know that means a cowboy. So, real quick, we also hear about how Antonio's mom and his dad want him to become two totally different things when he grows up, and I feel like that kind of puts a toll on Antonio throughout the chapters I'm reading and discussing. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. So we find out that Antonio's mother does not want Ultima alone out of respect, and throughout, I think, that chapter, they talk about how it's just the proper thing to do. If you have extra space in your house, like, why not? And I can relate to that because a lot of people in my family, once, our grandparents get older, we, like, invite them back in, and, it's just, like, the proper thing to do, so that's something I could relate to. Antonio's father questioned if Ultima's stay was okay for the children, and I feel like that's when the word cuarenta comes into play, because we discovered that a lot of people view Ultima as a witchcrafter rather than the healing she's trying to do through the cuarenta. And she's using like herbs and spices and stuff to make people feel better, to heal them, and I feel like people back then just didn't understand that. And not even in this book, but in just in like general, like you hear about that, and in movies I see it sometimes, so it's not even new here, but like I see where people were coming from. But it's just sad that they kind of open their minds to like what the healing she was actually trying to do. So real quick, he talks about being nervous for school, and we also hear about this in Borderlands when Gloria was scared to go to school because in her eyes it felt as if they're not really going to school to learn anything, but rather going to school to learn to speak English. And he even discusses this here. So that's one thing that comes up in chapter 1. And I want to talk about his dream. He dreams of the event of his birth and the events that followed, like literally right after he was born. I feel like this plays an important role because I feel like a lot of people, right when he was born, and he discusses it in this dream, that people like on his mom and dad's side are discussing what they want Antonio to be when he grows up. And I know it's just a dream, and it's not really like real, but I feel like it has some significance because in real life he's always being bickered on what he needs to do when he grows up, and I feel like it's just following him in his dreams, if that makes sense. In my eyes, I view it as a nightmare. I feel like he's having this nightmare of you know, what should he do, and it's always people telling him what he needs to do. But at the end of his dream, we find out that Ultima is there and that she is there to let the men and the women that are bickering over Antonio's fate to step down because she knows the real destiny of what he will become when he grows up. So that was pretty powerful right there, I'll be honest. If I'm being honest, right here I put it in the PowerPoint that I feel like Ultima and Antonio's relationship just made me think that they were two souls that were meant to find each other. And it's true, I feel like Antonio wasn't looking for her, but once she got there, he was able to view the world differently. And then he also mentions the owl that came with Ultima. This owl was not really talked about, but I feel like he talks about the cuentos that was described of owls and how the Brujas would use it for, like a symbol type thing, but he views this owl differently because it comes with Ultima. So he doesn't think this is a normal owl, he thinks that this is a peaceful owl. So in chapter 2, I want to start off with how his sisters are playing paper dolls and how I can relate because when I was younger, I would do that. So that was something I wanted to point out. I want to talk about this quote of Ultima, and it says, "And I was happy with Ultima. We walked together in the Año and along the riverbanks to gather herbs and roots for her medicines. She taught me the names of the plants and flowers, of trees and bushes, and of birds and animals." So I really like this quote because I think it really just shows that he was able to see things through a different perspective with Ultima. I feel like he was viewing his he talks about the river and how he was scared of it, but now he's just like, oh, like she's making me see it in a different eye, like in a different view. So I feel like back to the chapter 1 thing, I feel like they were just meant to find each other in my eyes. So we also find out the owl that warns. So when the owl that warns, I think he was just hearing it and he was just like, oh, like that doesn't sound normal. So like he like even felt it. He even said he felt it in the air. He felt something shift that night. And that's when we find out that someone has died someone got murdered. And that's when we play into some more character roles. We find Lupito, we find Chavez, and some other men we come into contact with. But that whole thing with Lupito killing somebody, we find out he's from the war, and I know a lot of people can go to war and come back differently. So a lot of people just thought he was crazy, but never capable of killing somebody. So that was brand new, finding that he killed somebody. But so Antonio follows Chavez and his father to the bridge by the river because they are looking for Lupito, and Antonio wants to see everything that happens, and unfortunately he does see Lupito die. And I think after that, that's when he starts to think differently. And no one can blame him. Like, he saw someone die, and I feel like he was confused and he just had so many questions, and I feel like it's reasonable, he saw someone die and then he's confused on what happens next. And then he sees his brothers in a dream, and in this dream he also hears somebody telling him what he needs to do when he grows up. So we hear his brothers talking to him and being like, we need you to come with us to the other side of the river and we could build a castle and stuff. But then his other brother's like, wait, no, like you need to stay with mom. And I feel like, again, it's like always somebody telling him what to do, and he's like conflicted. And again, like I'm saying, like I feel like this is just something in the back of his head that like he's always dealt with, and that it's just bothering him, and now it's a nightmare. I don't still see personally at them as dreams. Anytime he talks about what he needs to be when he grows up, I view him as nightmares for him. That's how I view it. I might be wrong, but that's just me. His brothers also talk about him lifting the muddy waters, and I feel like that they say that to him because Antonio has this like deep personal connection with the river, and so I feel like that's why they mention this. They also mention Lirona, but instead of like them being like, oh, like she's here for you, they say that she is there for Lupito, and I think it's because he died at that river, and all the tales about her. So I feel like that was just something important, and something I can relate to because I remember learning about her when I was young too. So chapter 3, I'm not really a religious person, but in this chapter, I could really see Antonio start to dive like deep into his religious thoughts after the death of Lupito. I think he questions a lot of things because he is worried about the sins and the punishments that will follow. Not even Lupito, but like his dad and the other men that were there on the bridge that partaked in the death of Lupito. And then this quote in the chapter, it says, "Where was Lupito's soul? He had killed the sheriff, and so he had died with mortal sin on his soul. He would go to hell, or would God forgive him and grant him purgatory, the hopeless resting place of those who were neither saved nor damned?" I feel like at a young age, this is such a freaking like, sorry, mind my language. This is such like a, like a, like a good question. Like like who asked that kind of question at that kind of age? I think seeing him die and then living with his father is just kind of like, oh, like what happens next type thing. I think this event even made him more worried about his own destiny. And of course, like he's full of questions. He's full of wonder and he's full of what's going to happen next. Not even for him, but for other people. And you could definitely see that throughout this chapter. And then again, we find more differences between Antonio and his mother, and this time it comes down to religion. His mother is more of like a more religious person, and his dad kind of just makes a mockery of it. And then we also find the nickname of Inquisitor. I don't think I'm saying that right, but Ultima gives it to Antonio because he is full of questions, and she's just like, dang, like this boy is talking my ear off, so that's why she calls him that. And then at the end of the chapter, we also find out that at the church, Antonio starts to put himself out there with the other boys while waiting for the church to begin. So I feel like it was just nice to see him like step out of his comfort zone because he's always seems to be alone or either with Ultima. So overall thoughts, these chapters only show the little diversity that this book has to offer. I know there's way more even after chapter 3 and continuing. There was a lot of more like different like cultural experiences. There's many different backgrounds to each of the characters to show how Antonio experienced his life, and I think that's very important. And this book is really good. I think it really shows a deep understanding and appreciation for Chicano history. Yeah, that's my presentation, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.